Hello. Nice to meet you again. Welcome. We're so pleased to have you here. Yes, thank you so much. Look at those people.
So beautiful to see you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
if South Africans continue to struggle, and that South Africa's global leadership must basically start with the national responsibility. So that's what we expect the message to be this morning from Operation Tudula. But I know that Operation Tudula is concerned about the area which they've been allocated to protest. As I indicated when I did speak to part of the team from Operation Tudula, they did say that the area they've been allocated on the corner of Rifle Range and Nasrec Roads is too far from the area in Nasrec where the actual event is taking place. They were concerned that where they were allocated, where they were placed essentially, is not where they would want to make the statement. So you would understand, with all eyes being on South Africa, different groups, as we saw yesterday, protests against gender-based violence, Operation Tudula today has their own message to send as the G20 summit gets underway. They're basically saying that the area where they've been designated, they've been given permission to protest, is a bit far from the area where dignitaries will be passing from. In fact, from where you can see behind me, this is where police have closed off. So the media itself would need to find a different area to move through in order to get to that particular protest. That's what we're expecting the concern to be. This area here behind me, like many other areas, have been closed off, of course, to allow the flow of traffic, and also to allow certain areas that have been designated for dignitaries to go past and attend this particular summit. Even certain areas have been closed off to the media. So we're expecting that protest to get underway this morning, but of major concern for them, as we understand, is the fact that they'll be protesting a little bit too far from the area where they say they'll be able to get their message across.
Remember, he's receiving the...
All right, thanks very much, Griselda. So thanks, keeping an eye on what's happening outside. We're keeping an eye on what's happening inside. And what we can tell you is we saw just a moment ago the Deputy President of South Africa arriving. And that was quite a moment there as he was welcomed by the Chief of Staff. And also arriving now, we've got
Dr. Tedros.
Ghebreyesus. Absolutely. He's arriving now on the red carpet there. So how it works, in fact, is that you're going to see a lot of the international organizations and regional economic communities arriving now. So from the World Health Organization, that's what is happening at the moment now. And we're seeing different dignitaries being welcomed. So we're going to now keep a very close eye on this, Sophie. And I've got your eyes as well firmly attached onto these screens. Our Deputy President is the one who's welcoming everybody as they do walk in through that carpet right now.
I think the President will be receiving heads of state and government. The GP is receiving those international guests and also other important guests, and they represent different organizations as it relates to global issues. You can see that the representative of one of the agencies of the European Union arriving, and therefore you'll see different people who are not necessarily your leaders, but representing different organizations. I think the World Trade Organization will be included, and many others.
Yeah, indeed. So we will start seeing all of this taking place right now on your screens. We'll capture all of this live. Now remember, these images are beaming around the globe right now, and we would obviously see our president arriving shortly as well, and that's where the Deputy President will welcome President Cyril Ramaphosa, who will then go into the heads of state. So
you can see the IMF, the arrival of the IMF head there, as we indicated earlier on, that the G20 will have to grapple with the transformation of the financial institutions, and that is why you see the IMF head arriving there, and I think the World Bank will also follow soon.
Yeah, indeed. That, of course, is IMF Kristalina Georgieva, who is the IMF Managing Director, and very, very much so G20 focused when it comes to the economy and many issues around the IMF. So you can see now that this is very, very much so high-level people arriving now This is the moment, and this is really the moment that we have been waiting for as we see these arrivals taking place right now. So we'll continue to monitor and see who is next. Fast, those cars are piling up, and one by one, people are coming out and entering onto the red carpet.
I think what is important with the IMF, it's the whole issue of inequality, Doctor, in terms of how you deal with it as it relates to that Stiglitz report, Professor, yes.
Indeed, in Professor Stiglitz's report, the inequality report that really dealt not only with international inequality, so inequality between states, but also the growing inequality that we're seeing within states, both developed and developing, and that made a number of recommendations of reform and policy interventions that should be made in order to reverse the huge inequality growth that we have seen in the last 5 years. So everything from sort of pre-distributive changes around the distribution of asset ownership, taxing wealth in particular, but then also using regulatory systems in order to reduce the amount of wealth that is kept by the richest within countries and in the globe, but then also another set that is more redistributive. So progressive taxation policies, which is something that has been on the agenda of the G20 for a number of years now, as well as a focus on public services like healthcare, like education, which is really, really important as public services that help to redistribute income within states.
All right,
I think it really confirms the report of the former finance minister, Trevor Manuel, on Africa. He also emphasized similar issues in terms of how you address the challenges we are facing of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. And the president announcing a conference next year, Borrowers Conference,
yes,
where you'll have these institutions, IMF, World Bank, Development Bank of Africa, the BRICS Bank, bringing them under one roof to say, how do we ensure that we make resources available for developing countries and the poorer nations.
Indeed, and I think that there's several things that came out of that Africa Commission was that Africa expert group, firstly around dealing with issues of debt financing, building this borrowers club in order to improve the terms on which African nations in particular borrow from the market, both from sovereigns, so other states, but also from the development banks, and also then to have some way of restructuring global finance and the global economy in terms of financing trade, so empowering African trade and finance institutions, increasing and strengthening international tax cooperation so that we can start to combat illicit financial flows. President Mbeki, former President Mbeki, has done a number of studies on illicit financial flows over the, had his big committee that he was in charge of that was handling illicit financial flows and studying the impact of illicit financial flows on the African continent in particular, that came out with the conclusion that Africa is actually a net creditor to the world, that if you count the amount of money that flows out of the continent in unpaid taxes and also in climate change damage or environmental damage, that is far below the amount that the African continent receives in remittances and in development aid.
All right, let's just welcome Sakina back onto the set as well. She's finished her walkabout on the floor, and we are watching the arrivals of a lot of the different representatives, different organizations that are going to be attending. The Deputy President, of course, is there, who is welcoming them as they get to the top of this red carpet. So this is what you're seeing currently on the screen at the moment.
Yeah, and we are literally counting down the minutes now to the opening opening of this G20 Leader Summit. That's Dilma Rousseff.
Yes,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
BRICS Bank.
Yes, and again, very important representation here at the BRICS Summit. But of course, Sophie, speaking to that, we're talking about investment opportunities, just to move on from the discussion you were having. The BRICS Bank, and all of the other lending institutions. How is South Africa approaching the investment opportunity that may present here at the G20 Summit, especially against the backdrop of these geopolitical tensions? Because I would imagine it's a fine line that you need to walk now.
Yes, you are correct. I think the president will use this opportunity to have many bilateral talks. You know that he was in Asia. He has just returned from Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, and also Vietnam, because due to the tariffs imposed by the United States of America, you have to have plan B to try and manage or reduce the impact. Therefore, you have to increase trade volume with Asia, and therefore you have to engage those countries, but also continue to engage the European Union that has shown keen interest in terms of increasing trade volume with South Africa. Your United Kingdom, bilateral, because they've just decided to pull out of the European Union, the Brexit. So this is a moment for the president also to do that. That is related to the interest of South Africa, but also pushing the agenda of the developing South and the African continent.
And as we continue to see more of the dignitaries making their way, strutting up the red carpet, if you will, and we are getting ready, of course, for that opening address by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And then just continuing, Leanne and Dr. Mbete as well, with the themes that we are looking at. And one of the things, when we talk about the legacy